All right, good afternoon, Facebook. Welcome to another edition of Real Estate Talk Live. This is Tony Martinez. I'm broker of Extreme Realty Team, and we have another action-packed, content-rich show for you. This is an opportunity for you as a consumer or as a real estate professional to get a lot of your questions answered. Initially, the show was primarily designed to educate and inform and motivate real estate professionals, but we're finding that a lot of consumers are tuning in as well, which is fantastic because I look at it this way. The more informed you are as a consumer, the better decisions you're going to make. So this is an opportunity for you to go ahead and get a lot of your questions answered. So we don't have a rigid format, we kind of free flow. Today we have a fantastic guest here today. Omar, my co-host, Omar Arcia of the Arcia Law Firm, is actually on his way in right now. He had an emergency hearing. That's what happens when you're an attorney. You're on call all the time. So he will be joining us probably for the second half of the show. So what you need to do now is get settled in, get logged in, start getting in your questions. One of the things that is always a challenge for me to multitask is to go ahead and do the show and at the same time find the show on my device so I can go ahead and see the questions. So I'm going to ask my tita over here, which is my producer, to go ahead and find the show for me there so that I don't have to struggle. So here's what I want to talk about today. A couple of things I wanted to talk about, and this will appear on the surface to be primarily toward real estate professionals, but consumers, pay attention as well, because this actually will help you pick a better agent and have a smoother transaction. So there is a contract, a very seldom used contract within the real estate industry that is called the exclusive buyer-broker agreement, the exclusive buyer-broker agreement. And I'm a huge fan of this form, and I tell you, sometimes I feel like I'm completely alone in this because it is probably one of the most underused forms out there. So essentially, the intent of the form is to create a binding contract agreement between a prospective buyer and the real estate professional that's representing them. Now, as I've studied why this form is seldom used, I usually come up with 2 or 3 reasons why I think it's not used. So let's go with number 1. First reason why it's not used is, regrettably, a lot of real estate professionals do not know that it exists. All right, that's the first thing right there. The second reason it's not used is because many real estate agents lack the knowledge, confidence, in order to present this form as being a benefit, not just to them, but also to the consumer as well. So if you can't explain it properly, you're not going to get a whole lot of people ready to commit to using you as a real estate professional and putting it on a dotted line. It kind of goes back to the old adage, a confused mind says no. If you're not able to convey succinctly in 30 to 60 seconds why it's a benefit to the consumer to go ahead and commit to working with you exclusively, they're not going to do it. Another reason why I think it's not used is because there are consumers that have no intention whatsoever to work exclusively with one real estate professional. And we need to talk about this because it appears that there's a lot of misinformation in like keeping your options open. It doesn't work that way. It actually hurts you in the long term. The other reason I believe is because a consumer may already be working with 1 or 2 or 3 other agents and they just don't want to commit to one particular agent. So I think that pretty much sums up all the reasons why it's not used anywhere near the way it should. Now, why should it be used? Well, we're in a very, very competitive environment. You know, as a real estate professional, one of the things we always struggle with is perception. You know, I think the better you are at doing a job, the easier you make it appear to be, and there are people out there that don't equate value to what it is a real estate agent does. Well, it's up to us as professionals to convey that information more clearly, but there is a lot that we do to keep a transaction together. Right now, in many markets in Florida, we have what is called a seller's market. What does that mean? There's little inventory, there's tremendous demand, and the seller pretty much has their way. When you are a buyer, if you're out there right now trying to buy a home, you know how frustrating the process can be. It seems that there's hardly any inventory. When a home does come on the market, you have multiple offers and you're constantly being beaten out. So how does this form put you in a position where maybe you can get that home that you want? Well, think about it. Why does a real estate agent practice real estate? Might it be to put food on the table and keep a home over their families. That's what they do. That's what we do for a living. So we want people to understand that we only get paid if we are successful in our endeavors. Forget calling it a commission, call it a happy fee, because if you're not happy, you're not closing, and if you're not closing, nobody wins. So think about what it takes to even get an offer accepted in this competitive environment. Do you think an agent might be more apt to work with you, work harder on your behalf, devote more time, effort, and resources if they felt that you were 100% committed to them? Well, that's what this form can do, because it is a trust issue. Think about it. The real estate agent is putting out all this time, effort, monies, resources with no guarantee that they're ever going to receive any compensation. The least that they can demand of you is you're only going to work with me, right? Well, this form makes it out very, very clearly in terms of what the agent's responsibilities are. And I love the fact that it's in writing. You know, it basically says what is the broker's obligation, what is the prospect or buyer's obligation in this. That way there can be no misunderstandings. Well, you never did this. Well, I wasn't supposed to. Well, you never did this. Yes, I did, and I have a record of actually having done so. So, what does this contract bind someone to do? The contract is essentially telling the buyer that the buyer agrees to work exclusively with that real estate agent, and you are actually hiring that agent. That agent is now working for you. Think about that. You want an agent that's committed to you, that's representing you, that's being compensated by you, or the traditional approach where the agent is technically being paid by the seller, and then you start wondering, well, who do you really work for? So in the agreement, it clearly lays out the duties and responsibilities, and it clearly states that the buyer is going to be responsible to paying the real estate agent. That's where a lot of people freak out. They go, whoa, wait a minute. I got to, in addition to buy the house and the down payment, the closing costs, I have to pay the real estate agent as well? Oh, okay, well, slow your roll, because it clearly states in here that any funds that are recovered from the seller's side are applied to offset anything that you're responsible for. So let's put this into numbers. Let's say, for example, a real estate agent puts on here that they are going to work for no less than, say, 2%, 2.5%, or say 3%. All right, so for the sake of argument, let's use the number 2.5, that they're not going to work for less than 2.5. Well, yes, you as the buyer are agreeing to make sure that that agent is going to receive no less than 2.5. How is that advantageous to you? Well, think about it. There are many homes in the MLS right now where the cooperating broker is receiving far less than that. And sadly, and one could argue less than ethically, there are agents that will look at the amount of compensation, and when it's below what they believe to be a minimum that they should receive, they won't even show that property. So you think you're seeing the entire inventory, but are you? If properties below a certain compensation level are not being shown to you. What about for sale by owners? Often, most agents will not even approach for sale by owners, so you're not seeing those properties either. So if you're agreeing to pay the agent representing you, say, that 2.5%, and the seller has clearly indicated through the MLS that they are also willing to compensate the cooperative side 2.5%, we have a wash. So it's not costing you any money. Should there be anything, a gap that has to be made up, as the buyer, you can elect to not move forward with that offer because you do have an amount that you have to make up. You might be more than happy to make up that difference given the fact that you have an opportunity of getting the home that you've always wanted to get. Or you can go back to that agent and say, in this scenario, are you willing to go ahead and lower that number so it doesn't come out of my pocket? You see, it's a win-win-win for all the parties involved. So it's hard to do a 1-hour presentation in 10 or so minutes, but just on the surface, as a real estate professional, here's what I think you ought to do. I think you ought to go into formsimplicity.loop, and if you've never pulled up this form, go ahead and pull up the exclusive buyer-broker agreement, brokerage agreement. Study it. Go to your broker, sit down with he or she and say, explain this to me, why it's advantageous, why it's not, should I use it? There are many states out there where this type of form is actually required. It's mandatory. That is not the case in Florida. It's 100% optional. But I do believe it's in the best interest of the real estate professional and the consumer to, at very minimum, review this form, discuss the pros and cons, and make an educated decision. Anyway, that's it on that. And do we have any questions there? Okay, so far so good. All right, so then I'm going to bring up my guest, and I'm truly honored that we have this gentleman here today. His name is Rudy Hernandez, and Rudy is the dynamic chairman, founder of New World Title. So Rudy, welcome to
What an introduction.
All right, bro.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate that. How's everyone doing out there? Hopefully everyone's doing fantastic. Tony, what an introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm humbled.
Have a seat, brother.
Absolutely.
We'll relax here a little bit.
All right.
So thanks for joining us. And folks, just in the interest of full disclosure, New World Title is a sponsor of our show. And also, Rudy and I are partners. We are a partner in one of the New World branches, the one here in Davie. So we work closely together. And I've had the privilege now working with you a little over 2 years.
That's right.
And it's amazing the tremendous amount of growth that New World Title has experienced.
Well,
so
you've been a big advocate, and you've been a big part of that growth. So I thank you.
No, listen, it's our pleasure. Hey, you know what? A lot of folks out there know or don't know exactly what a title company does. Wanted to give them a short description of what role does a title company play in a real estate transaction?
Plain and simple, we provide the title insurance for the buyer. Anytime they purchase a transaction, it's a key component of purchasing a property. You want your title insured, and that's essentially what it is that we provide to our clientele.
So you're insuring against issues that could come up that might challenge the ownership, the whether it was clear and marketable title, any of these things to protect both the buyer, seller, and the lender as well.
Typically the buyer, but you're right on. That's exactly what it is that it provides.
Okay. So, you know what, there's a lot of real estate agents out there, and there are a lot of title companies out there.
Sure are.
Okay. What makes New World special?
Well, the fact that we embrace competition, the fact that we embrace the spirit of trying to attain business and doing it the right way is really what elevates our level. I really firmly believe that it starts from the ground up. The people on the floor, the people in the offices. I like to say thank you to everyone. Hopefully you're all plugged in. I truly appreciate all the hard work and efforts that you put in on a daily basis. But it really starts with that. It starts with their passion for doing it. It starts with them wanting to come in every single day and please our agents, please our loan officers, and really service the clientele at its best possible maximum potential. And that's really what differentiates us. Other than that, Tony, I can go on and on about it, but there's a uniqueness that we bring to the table. We bring a freshness, we bring some youth, energy. The old school way of doing things is the old school way of doing things, and we're trying to implement different strategies every single day to try to separate us apart from the competition. One of the things that we've got that's going to be launching hopefully within the next couple of months is some new technology. We've got an app-based technology that's essentially going to push notify every single person in the transaction to what's going on in the transaction. It isn't available anywhere. No one's used it. I don't know if anyone's come up with it, but we're actually implementing it and putting it into place. We've got a prototype model right now that is going extremely well, and hopefully we're going to be able to launch it within the next 2 to 3 months.
Excellent. Now, from typical, your primary customer traditionally is the real estate professional.
Typically.
Because the real estate professional is integral to the process, and many times the consumer is completely relying on the real estate professional to direct them as to who the individuals or companies are going to be in the transaction.
Sure.
But you've been doing something that I don't see a lot of title companies do, is you're also reaching out to the consumer.
Absolutely.
The end user. Is that because you feel that there is an opportunity there, because so many title companies just don't actually reach out to the consumer and say, you know, you have a choice of what company to use, and here's how we can be of service to you?
That's absolutely correct. Other than the fact that we're also dealing in an age of millennials who are tech savvy,
Right.
who are on their computers, and who are actually making decisions on their own. So one of the things that we're trying to do different is get more on the technology side of things, have a bigger appearance when it comes to the web, and also we've launched a commercial recently that aired for about 8 months straight within some particular areas in South Florida, and it was directly related to the consumer and how it is that they had their options and their choices to pick a title agency or an attorney when it came to their closing transaction. But all good points, Tony. Absolutely, it's been common ground that a real estate agent is typically the comfort level
Right.
for the clientele, and they kind of direct them to which lender they like them to use, and also which title agent they'd like to be utilized as well. So we're trying to go, we're trying to reach that as
Right.
well as the masses, which is the public. And we're trying to find different ways on how to get into with them and let them know that we're available and that we're competitive and that we're really, really good at what we do.
Well, a lot of newer agents will watch the show and, they just don't know. Maybe they haven't done a transaction yet or anything else. But nobody can force you to use a particular title company.
That's absolutely right.
You could have an in-house title company, but you have the right to use whatever title company you want. And what I've always felt that all companies that are after a real estate agent's business, all they really want is an opportunity to earn your business.
Sure.
Now, in Florida, the way it works is mostly all the counties, I believe, except for 3 counties, the seller is responsible for paying for the title insurance, so they're given the privilege of picking the company. But of course, South Florida is unique, as we're unique in so many ways. So in Miami-Dade and Broward County, and I believe in the Naples area, Collier, or one of those counties, the buyer actually is the one that picks the title company and pays.
Correct. This is just typical way of doing business for years, so it's
Right.
kind of just stuck that way.
Right.
There isn't a law,
Right.
or there isn't anything that regulates that to be such. But Orlando, for example, seller chooses title typically.
Right.
There isn't anything contracted. Again, as I'd like to reiterate, it's not a law. It's just typical for those counties. Palm Beach County, we're talking Orlando, and we're also talking Naples, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but
they all choose.
The
Seller
buyer.
typically picks
Right.
the title insurer and pays for the premium.
One of the things I always tell my agents, because more and more you're working with a buyer and the seller side, the agent is saying, you must use this title company. Well, right away when they start using language like you must use this, we can start arguing,
Absolutely.
are they borderline in violation of RESPA? But I always tell the agent, I go, look, the seller has an advantage in this market because if it's a seller's market, they have their pick, right?
Absolutely.
So if they're strongly suggesting that you use their company, at the very minimum, they need to pay for the title. What truly bothers me is an inexperienced agent saying, oh, okay, my buyer is going to go ahead and surrender the option of what title company to pick, and they're also going to be paying for the title themselves. At that point, that should be part of your negotiations to make sure that if you surrendered your right to go ahead and select a title company, at the very minimum, the other side needs to go ahead and pay for it.
Pay for the premium. Agreed.
Okay, so as far as your market reach here, when we first met, you were really starting to expand incredibly in Miami-Dade. That was where you first started, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So when did New World
That was
first
ground
start?
zero,
Yeah.
if you will. Well, we started the company, and again, it's my memory serves me well. It's been about 9 years or so right now. I come from a background of mortgages. Traditionally, I was in lending since 2001, and did extremely well with that. Title always intrigued me, and I came across some really valuable people who I'm very fortunate to still have in my life that kind of led me towards the title industry, and we took it off from there. The key thing for us with our expansion and our growth, simply put, was the people that I surrounded myself with.
Yeah.
I surrounded myself with good-minded individuals who look to make a difference and an impact in our industry, and that's the motto. And so Yes, we've expanded quite a bit. We've got our 16th office location opening up in Weston within the next month and a half or so, and we've brought some really, really valuable talent onto the team, and we've got an office in Central Florida, actually probably going to be looking at a second within the next month or so, and we've got one on the West Coast in Estero, which is right next to Naples, in between Naples and Fort Myers actually. So again, wonderful job, kudos to my team.
Yeah.
I wish I can take all the credit for it, Tony, but I won't sit here and do that. It just isn't, it isn't proper.
No, you're not that kind of person.
I'm really not.
Yeah. So what is your primary role within the company? Because you have surrounded yourself with some truly quality professionals.
I sure have.
So what drives you when you get up in the morning? What do you say? This is what I need to, as the leader of New World. What do you set out?
That's a fantastic question, and I'm happy that you posed that question. Many people don't really know me. They know of the brand, they know of the name, and they don't personally know what drives me. And I will tell you, monetary compensation has left the building quite some time ago. It isn't what drives me. What really drives me is putting together an organization that the mothers and the fathers who work in this organization can come to every single day and say they're really proud and happy, they're earning a living, they're putting a roof over their kids' heads, and that exactly is what drives me. It's expansion, growth, competition, those are the things that really get me motivated. So our expansion hopefully is never ending. I think that we can continue to do some things. We're tweaking a lot,
Yep.
and we're improving every single day. And so long as I can see that improvement, I can wake up every single morning and I can continue what it is that I want to do with the particular drive and passion that I currently have.
Great. Now, my co-host Omar Arcia, I met through you.
Absolutely, great
So
guy.
yeah, so you have a background, and he's also part of your legal staff as well, right?
He is. He absolutely is. He's a staff counsel, has been for quite some time, someone who I admire greatly, a brain when it comes to real estate law, and we hit it off the minute we met. And hopefully that relationship will continue to prosper and grow. I believe it will, and I'm sure that he has the same sentiment.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, thank you for the opportunity to have a chat with you.
Thank you, Tony.
It's amazing because you're not feeling well.
I'm not.
But you can't tell. You sucked it up like a
Feel
professional. And it's like from here, you're probably going to go to urgent care.
I actually am. Now the adrenaline's flowing,
Yeah.
so I may skip that. I've got an event tonight. I'll see you there. Yes,
absolutely.
Folks, thank you so much.
Everyone, Rudy Hernandez,
any
New World
questions?
title.
Any questions? No? Okay, that was easy, Tony.
All right, brother. Take
Thank
care
you,
now.
my friend,
Make
all right?
Feel better.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Listen, so Omar made it back on time, so he's here. So we're going to go bring up our co-host, Omar Arcia, of our Arcia Law Firm. Omar, how are you, man?
How are you, man?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I thought we had to carry the show all by myself
No,
today, man. I was
you would
getting
have done a
nervous.
great job in doing it.
Thank you.
You would have done a
Thank
great
you.
job anyway.
So
But,
we're here, and listen, earlier, so what we did is we were chatting about a couple things. I was talking to the
I feel
audience.
like a UPS delivery person today. I went to court this morning. I'm
Yeah.
right over here, and then I got to deliver some other stuff up in Broward County Court. Deliver good news to my client after I win a case. That's
That's
the
the
goal.
good news.
Right?
These UPS guys make some money. So listen, we were talking about the buyer-broker agreement and how I feel it's one of the most underused agreements within the industry.
Exactly.
And so hopefully I made a coherent argument for real estate professionals to at least look into it and see how it benefits them. I reached out to the consumer to not be afraid of the form because there's protection built in for them as well. And so we'll see, because I see those are steps that are needed to raise the professionalism within our industry.
You know, one of the things that I always present to my clients and to customers and to anyone that I deal with is it's always important to make the implied express.
Right.
I've talked to you about this before.
Absolutely.
I
Talked
talk
about
about
it
it in my
last week.
seminars. Make the
Mhm.
implied express. So if you have an idea of what your relationship should be like, what the parameters of that relationship should be like with your real estate professional, make it express.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? Like put it in writing so that at the end of the day, there's no questions in terms of what one party is to do and what the other's expectations are under that agreement.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we live in a society that we're a soundbite society, so we want to move quick. We want to do things fast.
Right.
And inevitably, it leads to situations where the parties' arrangements and agreements aren't specified.
Yeah.
And when something goes wrong and it goes to one side or the other side believes that the other side has wronged one
Sure.
or the other, and that leads to litigation. It leads to misunderstanding. It can lead to a broken business relationship. It can lead to a broken real estate transaction, which leads to no commission. And so it's
Absolutely.
always important to make the implied express.
Agreed. So a couple of other points I wanted to touch on today, and folks, again, if you're just tuning in, my name is Tony Martinez, broker for Extreme Realty Team. Omar Arcia here is of the Arcia Law Firm, and we do this show weekly Wednesdays from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, and this is our way of educating and informing the real estate community about things you can do, shouldn't do, and we want it to be interactive. So if you have any questions for myself on what we've been talking about or something else, or for Omar, go ahead and type it in right now on the group so that we can address it in the 30, 35 minutes that we have left. Now, a lot of talk has been, and we have shared a lot of information about the changes to the as-is contract that went into effect a few weeks ago. But there were other items regarding legal updates that came out at the same time, but it's been kind of overshadowed by the importance and relevance of the as-is. And I thought, you know what, let's touch on it today, because chances are nobody else will. Let's go ahead and make that clear. So, for example, one of them is called the Military Tenant Screening Rule. And anything that involves supporting our military, I'm down with that. I mean, that's absolutely, in fact, one of my proudest accomplishments is to be a trainer, a certified trainer for the Military Residential Specialist certification, and where we teach real estate agents everything they need to know to effectively work with active military and veterans.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of real estate professionals out there aren't familiar with 689.27, which has to do with the Servicemen's Act,
Right.
and how that interplays with any particular real estate contract.
Right.
I encourage all real estate professionals to become very much acquainted with that particular statute, 689.27. I provide it in my seminars and that sort of thing. We go through it because it provides our veterans as well as active military with rights that are beyond your regular civilians as it relates to real estate contracts.
Okay.
And a lot of people aren't familiar with that because we have to. It's one way of honoring our military.
Absolutely.
And it's important to, from a real estate professional side, you need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
You need to be aware of that. I mean, how insulting would it be to take a position that you can't cancel a contract if military personnel is called to active duty in the middle of a closing transaction?
Sure.
And they have the absolute right to cancel that contract
Absolutely.
and get their security deposit back under the statute.
One of the things that I don't know if I coined the phrase, but I say, don't just give lip service to people that serve us every single day. And one of the tenets and premises of the certification that I teach is that, the VA loan program is underused. Roughly about only 11% of eligible veterans and active military use the VA loan for their purchases. And to me, that's borderline absurd, because think about it. The VA loan program is not the best program for everyone, but in too many of those cases, the real estate professional has talked the buyer out of using the VA loan program. And so, but that's a topic for maybe another day. If you are a real estate professional and you're interested in attending this class I have coming up on how to become a military residential specialist, the next class will be here in Davie on June 5th. And if you'd like information on that, call our office, 954-530-0211. That's 954-530-0211. Now, this particular rule talks about tenant screening for the purposes of rentals. And it says here, a landlord and association must process a rental application from a military service member within 7 days of submission. So this is important because a lot of agents out there will work with rentals, but as I read this pertains to active military only. This does not pertain to veterans.
Right,
Okay?
active military.
Active military, because we have to make, it's obvious for me and you, but it's not so obvious sometimes out there. So
Right, the rationale behind the rule is you want to make sure that these active military are given a direction and a decision with respect to rental on an expedited basis, because these guys can be called to active duty from one day to the next.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it could be a situation where they're transplanting, they have a change of station, and they have a family to get secured, so that their head can be on protecting our country and our interests, and not where's my family going to live. Now, so you have 7 days. So this is important. If you're representing a renter, they are active military. This is ammunition, pardon the pun, for you, right? The housing provider must provide to the service member a response in writing of the approval or denial of their application, and if denied, the reason for denial. So they have 7 days to respond. If they're denied, the application is denied, they must state in writing why it was denied.
Right.
Now here's the
It
thing.
has to be for cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Failure to respond yields automatic approval.
Excellent.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And no, it's not just the landlord, it's the association is bound by this as well.
Right.
So if this happens to an agent, don't be surprised if the association doesn't even know about this.
I guarantee you the association's probably not going to be up to speed, especially smaller associations.
Right.
They're not going to be up to speed on something like this. And how about like private landlords that may not be up to speed on something like this? And they want to take their time doing, a due diligence and background search of this particular tenant. As a real estate professional, you need to be aware of this law and your rights on behalf of your client. I mean, we talk about this all the time, Tony, during our seminars. We make sure that the real estate professionals that are listening out there realize that they need to set themselves apart from the rest of the real estate professionals in order to be effective and in order to be successful. The way you do that primarily is serving as a resource to your customers. If you don't know the law, if you don't know how the law applies to your customers, how can you be a resource to them? So it's important for a lot of these real estate professionals, especially the folks that are listening and watching right now, it's important that you know what the law is and are up to speed. And that's why it's important to attend these seminars, look at the statutes, look at the contracts that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Know what it says. Don't operate like, I call it like a real estate zombie. You're just kind of walking through the paces, just doing what you're told to do.
Right.
And you're not really paying attention to what needs to be done either with contracts or with your customers. You're not listening to your customers' needs. You're just a real estate zombie walking through the day and not really realizing what you're doing. And that's detrimental to you as a professional, and that's certainly detrimental to the customers.
Real estate zombie, I think that's a good one. We need to use that. Looking at here,
I've trademarked that, by the way.
You have. I figured you would. All right. So one of our audience, Connie, wrote, "Is the seller able to use their own title company for their portion?" This is a great question. So let's say, for example, the way that the process works is you're a seller, and it's Miami-Dade and Broward. So the title company is secured or picked by the buyer's side. Well, the title company is going to charge a settlement fee to both the seller and the buyer, okay? And as part of that settlement fee, they're preparing the necessary documents for each. So what a seller can do, if a seller has their own attorney or their own preferred title company, they can opt to have the seller's documents prepared by those entities instead. And then that may make the seller feel more comfortable knowing that someone they know, like, and trust is handling their portion of the documents. Now, are you now paying double the amount? No, because obviously the title company that's doing the work, the settlement or closing for the buyer, can't charge you for functions that they're not performing. So the settlement fee or portion that pertains to the documents, that can be deducted.
Right, and it's extra security for the seller. We do seller's docs all the time in our office. It's extra security for the seller to ensure that the transaction is going through smoothly and that the person preparing those documents is actually someone that they've retained. It's actually someone that they have an attorney-client relationship with that's accountable to the sellers. Because when you have a buyer purchasing a title insurance, technically speaking, they're not really accountable to the seller.
Right.
They're more accountable to the buyer. So when you have seller's docs and you have that arrangement, and I highly encourage any seller that's looking to sell out there, or any real estate professional that represents seller as a listing agent, to consider working with a law firm like the Arcia Law Firm to prepare seller's docs in any given transaction.
Great, great. Just looking at some more questions here. Another question was asked regarding the certification, the military residential, and is that something that's widely used or widely known? Actually, it's not. It's a private certification, and I'll give a shout out to the gentleman that wrote it, Buddy West, who he and I have become good friends and I have the utmost respect for. This was created because of a need, because of a tremendous disconnect between our military and the general public. Right now, we have the highest level of appreciation, I think, in years, ever since World War II. We have the highest level of appreciation and respect for our military, but we also have the highest amount of disconnect because less than 2%, and I could argue maybe closer to 1% only of the entire population has served. So a lot of consumers just cannot relate to the challenges and trauma and issues that have been faced by our men and women of our military. So this class was created to bridge that gap. I'm very proud to be an instructor. I'm very proud that within my office, we have the most MilRes certified agents of any single office in the country. So again, when I hold these classes, they're not just for extreme agents only. They're for all real estate professionals that want to take their knowledge to another level. And it's nice that the class is also approved for 8 hours of CE. It's only $225 for the class. It's a 9 to 5 scenario. And again, June 5th is the next date we have coming up. Call our office if you're interested, 954-530-0211. Okay, on to the next topic here. This tripped me out. I gotta tell you, when this first came up, the issue of video and audio surveillance.
Yep.
And it's just really a sign of the times. It's a sign of the times that, you know, most households now have more than just a standard alarm. They have all type of other security devices.
Both audio and video. I mean, they usually have like an outside video surveillance, but a lot of properties, especially if if they have like small children and they have daycare, people taking care of the children during the day, they have audio and video surveillance inside the house.
Inside the house.
So when you're doing a walkthrough, on some of these properties, lo and behold, you're being recorded, both your audio and your video. You may be providing confidential advice to your potential customer regarding how they should list a property, what they should do to get the maximum price for the property, what they shouldn't do, and all of that is captured on audio and video to perhaps the listing agent's lack of knowledge. So it's important that people be aware, especially a real estate professional, be aware of this particular significance of this.
Yeah, the big issue here is that it's illegal. Okay, so I know somebody right now is thinking, this is South Florida. What's law got to do with it? Right? Laws are only suggestions.
Right?
Out there. But let's assume for once right now that the law kind of matters. And it clearly states that the law requires the consent of all parties to record any telephone calls, in-person conversations, and any video recordings that include sound.
Right.
So now, as real estate agents, and this is why we do earn our money, is our job, it seems like every year becomes more and more complex. Because now we have to take an extra measure of scrutiny. And when you are listing a property, listen up real estate people, when you're listing a property, you have to ask the seller if they have any type of recording devices. It's one thing for someone to walk up, see a camera right there, and it's visible, they see it. But the assumption might be, well, that's only video only. If it's also being recorded, as far as sound, audio, it must be disclosed.
Correct. Yeah. Well, that's the reason why. That's the reason why when you call a debt collector, or a debt collector may call you or anyone on the phone that has any kind of taking a survey or whatever.
Right.
They always ask for your permission to record the audio conversation, because in Florida, it's one of those states where you need the consent of both parties to that conversation in order for it to be a legally recorded conversation. You can't really use it for any other purpose. And if one person feels that they've been recorded without authorization, they technically have the right to claim some kind of injury. I mean, obviously, I don't think that the state attorney's office is going to take a one-time situation, but if it's someone that has routinely does this kind of thing to people, then I mean, it's definitely something that the state attorney is going to take some concern about. And will take some action.
Sure.
So it's important that as a real estate professional, you add this particular question to your checklist. Do you have any audio or video devices in your house that I should be aware of?
Right.
Okay, and your first couple of people that you ask that to may look at you with a weird face, but you say, listen, I have to ask that. Because there's homes now with hidden audio devices.
Yeah. And so here's what and again, one of the best resources that we as real estate professionals have is our Florida Realtors organization, and visit their website on a regular basis and look for these kind of legal updates. It talks about video recording only. What if you know they have video recording only? It is permissible as long as written notice is clearly given on the premises or the recording device is immediately obvious. All right, so if it's a traditional camera only and they're walking up and there it is in their face, you can argue all day long, hey, it's plainly visible. All right, so the issue then becomes is it not clearly visible, and will it just be better for all real estate agents to have a very simple little a sign created that says attention or be advised that video surveillance is on the property. It must be disclosed. Now we're going to go a step further, and it talks about that it may be also a really good idea.
Can I clarify
Please.
something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so real estate professionals out there are listening and they're saying, oh, no problem, I'll take care of it. I'll just ask my customer when I get there. No, this isn't any showing
Right.
that you do of that property to anyone,
Yeah.
because there's people walking in and out of that property and you don't know that person from Adam.
Right.
So it could be someone who's just looking to create litigation, to
Sure.
create a problem. How many ADA lawsuits do we have
Oh,
of people
yeah.
who do this for a career, Tony?
Yeah.
They actually go into restaurants and they go into other establishments claiming that's not ADA compliant, and then they file suit against that establishment, and all of a sudden,
Right.
now you're looking at potential liability, and it could cost that particular establishment $1,000, tens of thousands, $100,000 to become ADA compliant.
Yeah, you know what? It's just this is prompting me as a broker to go ahead and I'm just going to create something for my company and just put it in our cloud so that our agents can just go ahead and print it, and when it applies, you just go ahead and just pin it on the wall or have it as a
Front door.
placard right there in the front door. And so you gotta ask. It's not about, well, they didn't tell me. You need to ask, and then you need to disclose. So it's in the MLS, in the broker comments, put a comment that says, or send an email to anybody that requests a showing to let them know, a reminder that there is a presence of cameras on the property. So from the listing perspective, ask the question and disclose. From the buyer's perspective, be careful what conversations you're having inside of the premises, because the tradition has been that you're in a corner, the seller is not there. What do you think? Do you like it? You want to make an offer? How much? Do you think they'll take this? Well, listen, ask them if they'll take this, but we're willing to go up as high as this. Well, if that's being channeled right now to the smartphone of the seller, one can definitely argue that they have an advantage, right?
And right now, all kinds of video and audio surveillance can be picked up right on your iPhone or whatever other device you have on your computer. The seller doesn't even have to be, at the premises. They could be at their work, and they can have it up on their computer.
Yeah, for the entire world to see.
Exactly. So just be very cognizant of the fact
Sure.
that you need to have this disclosure done. I mean, and be aware of the possibility of any potential repercussions if you don't disclose it.
Absolutely.
I mean, like you said, it's like for attorneys as well. I mean, it looks like every month we have to be up to speed on some new regulation, some new concern that we have, especially with how fast-paced technology is right now. We have to be conscientious of everything that's going on.
So one last bit on this, and that is I can only speak for my agents. I speak as a broker, but I'm not your broker, maybe not yet. And talk to your broker. Ask your broker, what policies and protection and procedures they have in place within the company. It's funny because somebody, put a question here. What does Extreme offer to agents that other brokers cannot?
Great question.
And listen, I don't always do things just for the goodness of my heart. There is an intention here. We believe that it's okay to do well when you're doing good by others.
Sure.
If this show is a blessing to you and you're learning something from it, it might give you the inclination to use us as your real estate agent when you're buying, selling, renting, or investing. And if you're a real estate professional and you're thinking, wow, this company seems to do things that the other ones don't, maybe I'd like to talk to them. I go, we're in a very competitive environment. My wife and I started the company very humbly back in 2013. We're in an environment where we're surrounded by franchises, huge independents, 100% shops, yet by the glory of God, we've been able to grow. And a lot of that, I give more the credit to my wife than me, but it's because we're so attentive to being supportive to the agents and training and supporting them.
Well, your foundation is strong, right? Your foundation is strong, and your foundation is in training and excellent customer support, excellent agent support, constant training, bringing in attorneys and other professionals that can provide expertise to your agents. And just being very responsive to your agents. You're a constantly growing company, but you haven't grown to the point where you can't respond to your agents when they need guidance or assistance, as a broker should do. Right? I mean, a lot of these larger corporations, an agent will send an email to their broker, and they may never get a response back. So they're basically on their own. They're flying solo. Even though they got to give a percentage of their commission back to that company, they're still flying solo. They're not getting the representation of an attorney to ask any questions they may have regarding the transaction. They're not getting the support of their broker and not getting sufficient training. Some of the training classes, they're so big that you may not even be able to get a space in a training class. I mean, there's so much that Extreme has to offer agents and potential new agents, as opposed to what the other guys offer right now. And that's why I highly encourage any real estate professionals right now that are watching, that are, I guess, on the fence with the current company that they're with, or even thinking right now where they should kind of hang up their shingle, is to really reach out and contact Extreme, because it'll be probably the best decision that you've ever made.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. And then just one last bit, and we'll get to another question. We're proud that we also have an office in Lake Placid. A lot of folks don't know the magic of Lake Placid, Florida. We'll probably do a segment on that as well, because it is...
Why don't we go out to Lake Placid one of these times?
You know what? I was thinking about that, because I think we really should take the show on the road. I think one of the next shows should be at your office. The other day I was at an incredible development over here, Botanical Weston. Hey Deborah, how are you? And they have a fantastic showroom. I'm thinking, but we got to bring the show out here.
Why not?
So yeah, we'll go to Lake Placid and do it. So, and we also have an office in Brickell as well. So, question here about early termination on a lease.
Okay.
If there have been repeated scenarios, like repeated burglaries in the development, in the person's apartment, SWAT team on the balcony, and the management went into the apartment, all this, are they valid? Can these potentially be valid reasons for a tenant to be able to terminate the lease early and not be penalized for that?
Right. The way that this works is a little bit complicated, because a lot of it is determined by the contract between the parties. So the lease, really, the written lease is what governs the relationship between the parties.
Right.
But if there's no written lease, and it's basically based on Florida's landlord-tenant statute, the way that it works is you give your landlord notice of conditions that make the property habitable. And that the landlord has a certain time frame to correct those problems, adding more security to the complex, doing whatever needs to be done.
Right.
If the landlord does not do what's necessary to correct the problem, then at that point you have the right to do an early termination, or to do what's called an antecedent breach of that lease. So you're basically you're breaching the lease because you're getting out of the property before the end of the term itself, but you're doing it because the landlord has violated the terms of the lease by not providing a habitable structure for you. Or it's the same concept of a leaky roof, or same concept, or bathrooms don't work, or there's mold in the area.
Right.
All these conditions allow you to terminate the lease early. I would not allow people to exercise self-help in this kind of scenario, where you have like all these scenarios where you set up like electric traps and stuff like that for potential burglars. I see that happening. I've seen that happening in the news, where the people have tried to deal with this on their own, and it has just gone bad. I mean, you have a burglar coming in and they die, and then they sue the property owner.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, but in any event, the idea is, if you're in that type of situation, speak to an attorney. We send a letter out to the landlord. We have a standard letter we send them notifying them of the problem with the property, and then if that problem is not corrected, we send them a termination notice of the lease, setting up the structure in accordance with statute.
Yeah, that's important to document everything.
Yep.
All the communication that they've done is documented, and maybe even potentially seek out some legal advice, because again, you may be 100% in the right, doesn't stop the other side from taking some action against you and withholding the deposit and causing those kind of issues.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
It's relatively inexpensive too. I mean, if people are thinking, oh, this is going to be a huge amount of expense to hire an attorney to send out a couple of letters, it's not.
Right.
It's not at all.
Yeah, it's better to be safe in that kind of scenario, because again, it can affect not only you getting the deposit back, but also the ability to rent something else in the future if you're getting a bad referral,
Exactly.
reference and everything there. So, so tell us about your week. What's been going on? What's going out there as far as some of the representation you got going on the foreclosure defense,
Right.
and everything? Anything in the last 2 or 3 weeks happening that can give people some pause for concern that maybe the climate is changing and banks are looking at things a little differently out there?
A couple of things are happening, and I thank you for asking that question, because it's very timely, and I need the real estate professionals to kind of who were kind of distracted earlier. I need to kind of perk up your ears and listen up to what's going on right now, because this is kind of the hot set right now. I mean, what's going on is well, we're starting to see a trend, and I told you before, when more people walk into my office seeking foreclosure defense assistance, what's happening? People are stopping their their payments for their mortgage, and banks are more aggressively pursuing foreclosure. We're seeing that tide starting to turn towards a more active foreclosure practice by banks, because I'm seeing more clients come in my door. That's a good thing for me,
Right.
because I'm representing more clients, but it's from a property value standpoint, there's always an inverse correlation. The higher the foreclosure rates, the lower property values go. So as foreclosures are starting to be filed now, you can expect over the next 6 months, in my opinion, a downtrend in property values.
Whoa, okay.
So that's what I'm kind of seeing in the horizon, if you will. Okay, that's from that standpoint. From the standpoint of modifications of home loans, a lot of you know already that the HAMP program was abolished as of December 31st of last year. So there's no more HAMP. So modifications are increasingly more difficult to obtain. We're seeing a pattern of banks being a little bit more bold in not offering modifications to people who legitimately are in good faith trying to keep their homes, and they're trying to save their homes. So what's going to end up happening is that we're going to have an increase in short sales.
Okay.
Okay? Because if the modifications don't work, then what's your next best option? You got to short sale the property. So I need the real estate professionals out there to be ready to deal with an influx of short sales. And what can you do to help them do that?
That's one of the questions that was just asked. And you know what? I want to touch on something, because I remember like it was yesterday when we first opened the office up, and we were talking about there was a spike in the amount of foreclosures and people behind on their payments. And somebody came up to me and goes, so that means more, so the fact that there's more foreclosures mean that there's, or more defaults mean that there's more short sales? I go, no. Okay, the fact that there are more foreclosures does not necessarily translate in for them to be more short sales. Virtually all foreclosures are short sale opportunities.
Right.
But then it comes down to what kind of advice, information is this distressed homeowner receiving? Now, we have to be the front lines, right? If we as real estate professionals are not keeping our antenna up and overhearing conversations that maybe in the past we would have ignored, you're not going to take it upon yourself to say, listen, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but overhearing, but you know, I'm a professional real estate agent, and based on your situation, have you looked into other options such as a short sale? And so what happens is we will see more short sales as we see more agents step up and present it as a dignified exit to a very difficult situation.
Exactly. And what I inevitably see happening a lot is we have a lot of real estate professionals out there that are hard selling the short sale to people who may not be ready to accept the short sale. I'm telling you right now, if you're listening as a real estate professional, people who I deal with homeowners a lot on a daily basis, and they really do appreciate the real estate professional that doesn't hard sell the short sale.
Right.
They appreciate the real estate professional that'll say, listen, I know that you may not be ready to do a short sale, but I want to give you guidance through this process.
Sure.
I've done this before. I've represented a lot of clients through this process. And it may be that you may be able to do a loan modification for your house. Listen, talk to this attorney, or talk to that attorney, or talk to this individual, or this cut loss mitigation firm. The idea is to establish a relationship of trust, right? In any sale transaction, you've got to establish that relationship of trust. And if, as a real estate professional, you're coming in there like a bull in a china shop, pushing the short sale, they're not going to have any kind of trust in you.
Right. Well, they see the dollar signs in the eyes. And look, I understand we're all trying to feed our families, but you may truly believe, and I hope you do, that a short sale might be the best alternative to them. But to them, a short sale is no different than a foreclosure in the sense that they're actually having to leave the home. So expect resistance when you're presenting an option that still involves them having to leave the home. Be sensitive to that.
Exactly.
And I tend to work backwards. You know, the reality is, if somebody believes that they can stay in their home 6 more months or 12 more months, that's rent-free living for them, okay? I'm a realist, and I go ahead and I tell agents out there, look at the sale list. Look at the ones that have an auction date.
Right.
Those, and work backwards from there. Those are the ones that are out of options. They're out of time. And I've had agents come to me and say, well, if the sale date is tomorrow, can we help them? Yes.
Yeah.
Potentially we can. We can't get into all that now, but you better believe we have strategies in place to go ahead and potentially buy them more time.
Well, that's one of the things that we talked during your short sale seminar, and we've done these seminars together, which has been very, very productive for the people that have been attending those seminars. And I invite people, if they want to attend a short sale seminar, if they want to learn more about how to grab more of these short sales and successfully monitor these short sales, to attend one of these seminars. It's absolutely key that anyone thinking about doing a short sale, you know the process.
Right.
And then you have access to an attorney that can jump into court right away and cancel a sale from one day to the next. And we do that. We do that every week. We did that this morning in 2 different courthouses. So we do that all the time. And to be able to have that kind of access makes all the difference in the world. And that builds the trust that that particular client may need in order to give you the listing.
Agreed, and we're just about out of time, but look, if you as a real estate professional out there have a heart to serve, you've always wanted to engage in short sale, maybe you did one, it didn't work out, it was a bad experience, I always start with your broker. You know, start with your broker. I think a really good litmus test is to go to your broker, team leader, whatever, and go to them and say, look, I want to engage in short sales, what do you think? Dollars to donuts, they're going to say, you're crazy, stay away, don't do it, those never work. They're called long sales for a reason, all this stuff. I think at that point, you're going to have a pretty good indication that maybe you're not in the right environment to help you grow that niche. And I think I might know someone that could help you in that area. And that's obviously a passion of mine, and we teach and we live that every single day. So I think that's just about it for time. Let's go ahead and remind folks how they can reach us. So how do they contact you?
Absolutely. I would love to help anyone that's out there that has any questions regarding any real estate transaction, any foreclosure issue, any short sale issue. We process short sales every day. Any questions related to any real estate questions at all. We meet personally with all of our clients, no matter how big or how small the case may be. I meet with them one-on-one and identify any issues that maybe you have to deal with in that particular case. You can reach me by contacting our office in Miramar at 954-437-9066. Let me give you that number again, 954-437-9066. You can also check us out online. We have a very interactive website, tons of information, client testimonials, articles, videos. We have a YouTube link that you can see all kinds of tips of the month to our clients. And you can reach us at our website at arcialawfirm.com. Arcia is spelled A-R-C-I-A, A-R-C-I-A lawfirm.com. And then you can take your time and guide through that website and communicate with us if you want to sit down and do an appointment. You can do that through the website as well. Love to meet with you and talk about your case and hopefully come up with a solution. And I think that it's the best step you could take is to kind of get that guidance that you need whenever you have confusion regarding your legal rights. That first consultation is 100% free of charge.
Great. Well, listen, as we wrap up episode 4, I ask a big favor of our audience out there is we want to keep growing this show as organically as possible. So you can help us by sharing it. It's amazing how many views we're already getting, and we're just getting started. So help us out by sharing this on your timelines and other social medias so that we can go ahead and continue to get the word out to as many people as possible. If you'd like to speak to me personally, you're a real estate agent, you have questions, you're a consumer, you have an interest, reach out to Extreme Realty Team, 954-530-0211. That's 954-530-0211. And if you have a product, a service, value that this audience might be able to benefit from, reach out to us as well, because as part of our expansion, we want to continue to bring in guests that have value and services that can help improve the real estate community. So thanks again for checking us out. Don't forget to share, and we'll catch you next week. Take care.